Hello, welcome back to A Boring Revolution, your number one news source for everything in regards to the Boring Company and Elon Musk. I'm back with another episode. I thought today we could have a look at the Las Vegas project, the Las Vegas Convention Center Loop, or the People Mover as they like to call it. So I've been grateful to receive this documentation. It gives us a bit of an overview of what exactly is going to be happening over the next 18 months or so. We've got plans in terms of the stations and also in terms of how the stations are going to be laid out with the mezzanine level. So I thought, let's have a look at this. And, you know, we already know quite a lot about what's going on with this project in terms of the details, but there's a fair few little nuggets of information in this document that I wanted to highlight for yourselves today. So we are live. Okay, so Las Vegas, Nevada. Boring Company USA. From now on, we'll be referring to the projects in terms of the parent company. So there may be projects in the future that are Boring Company China. There may be Boring Company Europe, you never know. But there'll certainly be Boring Company USA and Boring Company China. So this is, and I can't stress this enough, this is the most important project the Boring Company will ever work on. And you might think, well, you're being a bit over the top here, Will. There's lots of projects in the work. Why is this so important? And it's only a small project. It's only 0.84 miles long. Well, if we make huge mistakes, or even if we make minor mistakes on this particular project, if things don't go to plan, the media will absolutely castrate us. They will really go after Elon Musk. The Fudsters will jump in. The other YouTubers that are hating on Tesla will jump in. And it could potentially kill the Boring Company before it even starts walking, potentially. But I think Elon Musk has got a good handle on things. And I think that this project is going to be an immense success. An absolutely immense success. And I just wanted to fill you in because there's a few bits of information that have come to my attention, and obviously you guys want to be informed on a regular basis of what's going on with the Boring Company, and in particular the projects that they're constructing. We've got to remember that this channel is all about construction details, how things are going to get built, how they're going to overcome projects, what materials they're going to use, how they're going to innovate, how they're going to prefabricate, etc., etc. And that's what we're going to do today. So we have some new site plans and a couple cross-sectional drawings, which I will show you in a mere minute or so. I have the PDF document. That PDF document is available on the Discord page if you want it. Just ask for it, and I'm sure I can find the link for you there. It should already be on there, really. Station construction, the actual pits are very soon to be started. First or second week of September, it's looking very, very likely the Boring Company will be starting on site. Initial setup, initial site setup, initial excavation work. So that is due to start. I'll show you the program as well. We have a program for the job, so we can have a look at that and assess where we are at this current moment in time for Las Vegas. Elon's China visit is coinciding with LVCC, Las Vegas Convention Center, getting started. In my personal opinion, I do not believe in coincidences. Just don't believe in it. So I think there's some kind of announcement that's going to be made during this visit. Maybe some information in terms of where the pods are going to be made, where the TBMs are going to be made, where they're going to fabricate some of the components for this project. Maybe that will be done in China, or it might be done in China in the future, and they're just saying, you know, by moving to China, some of their operations, they can save, you know, 20, 30, 40% of what it would traditionally cost in the United States of America. So let's just do a very brief introduction to the LVCC Loop. A lot of you are regulars on this channel, so I appreciate that I'm just going over old information here, but obviously we have a lot of people becoming involved with this channel now. The number of subscribers is growing quite quickly. So let's just have a look at the brief details. So it's the Las Vegas Convention Center Loop, also known as the campus-wide People Mover. I prefer LVCC Loop. I think that just rings a bit better off the tongue, but you know, it's not up to me to decide that. Project value is $48 0.68 million. There is a bond of around 4 million. So really, if I'm going to be really honest, it's around 44.68 million in total. That's more of like an insurance bond to ensure that, you know, if something does go wrong, there are some funds to rectify things. The start date is, as far as I can see, the 1st of September 2019. So we're literally less than 3 weeks away from that starting, which is phenomenal. There are 3 underground stations, about 50 to 60 foot underground, and there are 2 tunnels, both of them running in the same direction, alongside each other in parallel. Length. So both tunnels are 0.84 miles long. There are 2 of them, and the system has a capacity of over 4,400 passengers per hour. I think it was stated that it was something around 4,800, or I can't find the quote for that. But I mean, when it's finished, it'll probably be nearer the 5,000 passengers per hour. We'll see what happens. But at this moment in time, I'm going to basically put it as over 4,400 because we know it has to be above that for the funds to be released to the Boring Company once they have finished building this project. This is one of the initial plans that was released when we got the contract sign over. As you can see, there are various routes. The route that we have gone for is design option 1 there in green. As you can see there, it is the middle line, the green line that runs from points 2, 3 and 5. My sources of information. So just to clarify, guys, I don't make stuff up. If I do say things that are incorrect, it's because I'm making an assumption. Hopefully I don't do that too often. But for this particular presentation, my information has come from the LVCC plans, which was issued quite recently in July. The Las Vegas Loop contract document, which is basically the contract document. It's around 200 to 300 pages. Most of it is fluff, which I believe we looked at quite recently with yourselves. Online news sources, there's various places. I mean, a lot of it is basically just copying each other. Some of it is speculation. Some of the information is actually incorrect. So you've got to be careful when you're dealing with these websites. But there's a lot of good information available on CNET, Digital Trends, and Engadget and Electric. LVCC Twitter feed, definitely I recommend you following that, and of course Elon Musk, who's pretty active on the old Twitter these days. So what is this? This is our program. This is our initial program. It may be modified. In fact, I'm pretty confident it will be modified, but for this moment in time, we're going to assume that this is gospel. This is what we're going to be working off. As you can see, we are well down the list in terms of regulatory approval. The Boring Company design process, Las Vegas Convention Center design review. So they would have already reviewed it in the previous month. I assume there's no issues. They would have approved it. They are looking to do final approval, as you can see here, in the final week of August, which is not that far away. It's under 2 weeks away now. So the Boring Company construction process begins in the first week of September. That is not far away, guys. To be frank with you, there has been very little information in terms of what's going to be started on that first couple of weeks, but in due course that information will come to light and I will bring it to you live and fresh. So we are here in the construction phase, or just on the border between the design and the construction phase. If you look at the top there where it says design and construction. So I've had a good look at the PDF documentation. I've got a few key takeaways, and then I'm going to show you the plans and examine what the hell is going on. So I wasn't too surprised to see this. The tunnel diameter is stated as 13 foot 6 inch, or to my European friends is 4.14 meters in diameter. I imagined it was somewhere around that. However, in terms of the internal diameter, I'm not quite sure about that, because it is stated as 12 foot, but I think it's more around 12.5 foot. But we'll have to see in due course. It's possible it may have shrunk this tunnel from the Hawthorne test tunnel very slightly, although you wonder if the actual cutter head will be modified to achieve that. There is a gap between the concrete segments and the actual tunnel that is bored. That gap is filled with grout. It's usually a gap of only around 10 to 20 millimeters, probably sometimes even less than that. So it's around about the actual diameter of the tunnel boring machine is around about 13 foot 8 inch altogether when you look at the cutter head. There are pod elevators. Now that was quite a surprise to me. That is certainly the biggest surprise, other than the fact that the tunnel diameter is slightly smaller than was previously stated. There are elevators built into every station. There are multiple elevators on some. That allows pods to get out and to get into the stations when necessary. I imagine it'll be a closed system. I imagine those pods will just stay in that system, unless they need a place on the surface to charge, which I'm not aware of at the moment. Unless charging is done at the stations at night time, I am unsure in regards to that, but I guess we'll find out in due course. But there is no charging area. There are elevators to the surface. Maybe there's a place on the surface where they can take the pods, maybe a local supercharger as such. Mezzanine floor. Now there is a mezzanine floor. However, it's more like a raised pedestrian walkway. It's not very wide at all. It's probably at most around 16 foot wide. There's a main sort of a bridge that goes across the middle of the stations that sits about 18 to 20 foot above the concourse, and then that's linked to the platforms via some staircases. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is they've not actually stipulated the use of any elevators, or escalators, sorry. They have got elevators, my apology, but they don't have escalators. I've put traditional stairways. Now, in most stations around the world, they have escalators and they have a set of stairs, which I find quite interesting. Maybe they're just expecting people who need to use the elevators, but maybe it's a cost-saving exercise, I don't know. Maybe they plan to put escalators in at another time. But at this moment in time, it appears that they just have staircases. The middle station, which is the one that's going to experience the most traffic in terms of vehicles coming from both the east and westward direction, is 30 foot longer than the other two stations. Obviously that's so they can accommodate more vehicles on the platforms. The dimension of that middle station is 280 foot by 100 foot, and that's clearly stipulated on the drawing. One thing that I've noticed, and I've been on Google Maps and had a good look at this, Kitchener Drive runs through the middle of Station 3. Now, are they going to remove that roadway and then replace it at a later date above the station? Or are they going to move the road entirely around the station? It's not even clear what is going to be on top of the station, whether it's going to be covered, what sort of canopy there's going to be. Maybe that will be taken on by a separate contractor other than the boring company. I'd say probably yeah, but at this moment in time, I'm unsure as what's going to happen to Kitchener Drive, whether it's just going to be blocked off and it's just going to become a cul-de-sac, and they'll just leave the stations open to the elements. Who knows? We'll have to see in later drawings. Here's a cross-section of one of the stations. This is what it's typically going to look. As you can see, the middle level, the mezzanine, that sits above the concourse. It only covers a very small amount of the station, which I'll show you in a minute. It's linked to via this stairway here, and they have delightfully added a trash enclosure drawing onto the platform there, which is quite bizarre really, because it's not really a structural element, is it? But hey, we need to recycle stuff. This is the main station. As you can see, there is an additional tunnel here on the left side of this end station. Now, it's not clear how that station is going to be constructed. I predict, and it's a 50-50 this one, that they will use pipe jacking for that particular short length of a tunnel. It's around 300 to 400 foot long, maybe a bit longer, maybe 450 foot long. It's not a very, very long, maybe 500 foot, let's say 500 foot long. It's not a great deal of tunnel, and it's probably more economically viable to do that with pipe jacking, and it can be done concurrently while they're boring the other two tunnels to the final end station. As you can see in the middle of the screen, passenger elevators on each platform. There are 3 platforms. Each platform is linked by an individual staircase, and that staircase links to a mezzanine level, which is on here somewhere. Once this starts working, see if that will work. Appears to have frozen, interestingly. That's unfortunate. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. For some reason it just frozen for a second there. So this area marked out in black is the mezzanine level. Now it's not really much of a mezzanine level. It's more like a raised pedestrian walkway. Those small blocks that you can see in the middle, those are the elevators, and the staircases link down to the platforms from these mezzanine levels. It's probably only around 16 to 20 foot wide at the most. At the end of each mezzanine point, there is a gated station entrance. I presume that around closing time they will close these station entrances, or at least close one of them and then close the other, before mentioned one. In the right hand corner of this station, you can see the rectangle there. That is the a pod elevator, and they are included in all the stations. Again, very similar for this particular station, passenger elevators and the mezzanine level. The tunnel is stipulated as 13.5 foot, or 13 foot 6 inches. Right, so just very, very quickly in terms of how these pits are going to be constructed, I have pulled these pictures from, I believe it was the Melbourne subway extension. I think it's Melbourne or Sydney. It's either Melbourne or Sydney. Anyway, it doesn't really matter too much. As you can see, constructing a pit of this size, around 280 foot by 100 foot, is quite a big undertaking, is a large civil engineering feat. It requires a lot of false work until that structure becomes stable, until they install the mezzanine level, and I presume they will do so in such a way as that provides support to the retaining walls. In this particular instance, the false work has been installed using steel I-beams. They're installed in this double, or in some cases I think it's triple as well, triple truss layout. I also have 2 layers, and they're connected to the ring beam on, in fact the ring beam runs on all sides of the retaining wall. Why do we do this? Well, there's a lot of pressure on that retaining wall. If this wasn't there, this false work, it would buckle. Like imagine if you put pressure on a playing card and the bottom of that playing card folds out. You need to essentially brace this structure from one side to the other. So those opposing forces are compressing and in equal amounts on either side. Thus your props hold it together, and you've obviously got to make sufficient openings so as you can get TBMs in and out of that pit. But this is the best method of doing it. It can be prefabricated off site and then dropped in when and where you need it. The walls are made of concrete. I believe it's poured in situ, just based on what it looks like from face value. It looks quite rough in places. I believe they pour it in long, thin sections and then excavate the pit after they have poured the concrete. So they'll dig a trench, around 30 foot deep and around 15 foot wide. They'll then fill that full of reinforcement and rebar, steel rebar and concrete. Once that is set, they will then pour another section of wall, which they will link into it. And once this is finished, they can then join it all up into one homogeneous structure and then excavate the pit so they can start dropping the TBMs in. But prior to completing the full excavation, they will then drop in these props. Well, initially it'll be the ring beam followed by the props. They'll then tighten that up and then they will begin commencing the remainder of the excavation, which will then add significant pressure to these props as they dig further down. Hence why they have 2 layers of props. Here's a machine sitting in the excavation. As you can see, this is a very, very big machine. This is around 17 to 18 foot in diameter, a lot bigger than the machines that the Boring Company are going to be used. But in terms of how we excavate these pits, this is a really excellent example of how it's done. As you can see, where the trusses meet the ring beam, you have these knees. Knees are very, very important. If those knees were not there, the props would actually shear through the ring beam and possibly even the retaining wall. So it's very, very important that the ring beam is installed correctly and these props are braced sufficiently and are adequately strengthened with trusses. Right, everyone, thank you for watching. We're going to have a look at the Adobe Acrobat Reader documents, PDF. If you've not already done so, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. If you've not subscribed to this channel, definitely subscribe. Definitely join us on Discord. Become part of this community. Again, thank you to all my Patreons. All this money goes towards paying my Ecamm Live subscription, which is going to be up for renewal next year. Hopefully we can keep the money rolling in and we don't need to worry about going back to QuickTime. But yeah, thank you. I can't stress enough how important this project is for the Boring Company. A huge failure on this project, either we don't deliver it on time or the system in some way doesn't function as it's supposed to, will cause major problems for the Boring Company in the future in terms of tendering for projects and winning contracts. So what we need to do is we need to win this project. We need to finish it on time, on budget and to the required quality. That way we can then use the momentum from this job in Las Vegas and go on to building jobs in Washington, Chicago, Los Angeles and hopefully other places, China, hopefully China. So in terms of documentation, we have this Adobe Acrobat, this Adobe document, which has got lots and lots of beautiful drawings which help us understand what's going to happen and where it's going to happen. So in terms of where TBMs are going to start, I imagine they'll start at station 1. It's that station 3. So I'd imagine that they would start somewhere down here and then both of them will work in the same direction to station 3 here. In terms of building the station here, I'm of the impression that they will build that after the TBMs have gone through this location. But potentially they could build this station and then pull the TBMs through to the other side and then continue the boring process. Again, we've looked at these drawings already. Just gives a good overview of how these stations are going to be laid out. I presume it'll be very basic, concrete walls, maybe a few benches here and there. Not really much furniture at all. Here's our cross section again. Why they've enclosed a trash enclosure there seems quite bizarre to me, given that's not a structural element, but maybe the designer was a bit bored and decided to throw in where it's going to be. it seems quite a tall trash enclosure as well, based on the scale that they've drawn this document. It's an outline of where it's going to be going. As you can see, top left, there is a road already there. And that road doesn't really go anywhere, so you wonder whether that road is just going to be crossed off the map and forgotten. Here's an overview over Google Maps. As you can see, they're building the new exhibit hall top left. Really fantastic structure. It's going to enable the convention centre to host much bigger events, which is great. Therefore, they'll have more people going, and they obviously need a people mover, which is where the Boeing company comes in. So yeah, so this is the end station, 250 foot by 100 foot. It's going to be situated in this parking lot. Whether that parking lot is still there, I'm unaware. The map on Google Maps hasn't been updated yet, so I can only see what was there a year ago. So I guess we'll find out in the future how it's going to integrate with the new conference centre. Again, situated in this parking lot, so there's obviously plenty of space there to do what they need to do. This is the middle station, 280 foot by 100 foot. It's around 50 foot deep, I presume, maybe slightly less. And here's that final station, which goes across Kitchener Drive. I presume that road is just going to be crossed off the map, because what would be the point in diverting round that, unless they can connect up that road from the other side? But I don't think that is possible. Anyways, that is me done for today, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. It's great that you've been with us today. Hopefully you'll come and join us in the future. I'm going to be doing an episode on the Boeing Company China and why I think it's an exceptionally good idea to form a subsidiary company in China. Kind of try and maybe break that down into a bit of a series if I can, or I might just put it in one presentation. But if you've not done so, please subscribe to this channel. If you'd like to help support me and my endeavour to promote the benefits of the Boeing Company, please support me on Patreon for $2 or more if you can afford it. Definitely join us on our Discord channel. A lot of good discussions on our Discord channel at the moment. Not just the Boeing Company, many other things. I noticed someone was talking about stationary storage batteries, which I found quite an interesting topic. But yeah, thank you for joining me. And remember, guys, don't be boring. Hopefully see you soon. Goodbye. Thank you for watching.